What's up, Skoldiers? Welcome back to Vikings First and Skol. I'm your girl Sal. This is Skoldiers and Spice. Tonight we've got a bunch to talk about. My friend John, aka VikingsGuy, is back, which means, of course, we're going to have a super fun episode. Got a bunch of topics tonight. Earlier today, the NFL announced some new rule changes for the upcoming season. Are they going to improve the game, or could they actually create some more controversy? We're going to chat all about it. Meanwhile, the Vikings rumor mill is kind of in overdrive. Are there any trades on the horizon? And what's the latest draft buzz? And while the ownership seemed to put the Kwesi Adofo-Mensah extension controversy to bed, when are they going to finally get it done? And as I said last week, it would not be a Minnesota Vikings 2025 offseason episode without a little QB2 debate. Let's get into it. Hi, okay. Hello, my friend VikingsGuy. What is up?
Well, tell you what, it's the nice thing about this off season so far, and which is nice, is in the old days of Viking fandom, you could count on arrests or people in doing no good. And so far, not to jinx the thing, but everybody's been behaving and they're enjoying their time off, and hopefully we can make it through the draft without any frick-a-frack mayhem by our Viking players. So all's good, and that's been a culture thing recently. I mean, they've been short of Addison having a couple driving knuckleheads. Things have been good. So yeah, I'm great. The Vikings are great so far, and yeah, it's exciting. I'm excited for this draft.
You know what? You bring up a very good point with the Vikings used to, you could almost guarantee that there was going to be some off-season drama. You did reference Addison, which we are going to talk about him in a little bit because there has been some trade rumors circulating around him, but hopefully he can stay out of trouble. But you're right. KOC has pretty much installed this culture where it's not even
Yeah.
something you even worry about anymore.
No, it's been great, and I think it's really a cerebral. Yes, there you go. Cerebral approach by Kwesi. If I could get it out, it's not by me. And but by the coach and by Kwesi, I mean they're thinking men, and they're people who they don't have to rule with an iron thumb, and I think it allows the players to kind of be who they are. It allows them to be straight with their coach. And the Vikings have a security force. They do. They have a security system that works for them where they actually have drivers for players, and they have a number they can call if they do get in a pinch. And so the Vikings, as of late, have done a nice job last 10 years of kind of hemming in some of the mayhem that the 80s, 90s, 2000s Vikings have been known for.
Absolutely. Well, like I said, we are going to get into some rule changes. I just talked to you last night. We actually were on a TikTok live. Just randomly,
Yeah.
I popped in and joined you, and you said you were available tonight. So here we are. You
Yeah.
have been my TikTok tutor a little bit. So thank you. I appreciate that. But let's say up
Well,
to the chat
yeah.
real quick. We've got Daniel here who says that he sees that hair spicing it up. I guess that means I'm definitely taking that as a compliment. So thank you. And we've got JB. What's up, my friend? He says keep them off the lakes, and we should be fine. Well, yeah, no more love boat. Daniel says also hello,
Mm.
Dr. Prado. Gary, my man, is here. Nice to see you. And yeah, nice to see you guys. We already got 25 peeps in the chat, so I appreciate you guys. Hello, Delton. Did he say iron thumb? LOL. You did say that, right?
Who
Iron
I don't
thumb? Yeah.
Iron Thumb. I don't think so. I
Oh,
mean,
oh.
maybe Iron Fist. Did I say thumb? I thought I meant fist.
I
I you know
don't know.
Yeah,
It's kind of
I
late.
got to
It's
stop having
really
a couple drinks before these YouTube things. I think
fun.
maybe I don't know.
Yeah. Well, did you do your podcast earlier today also?
Yeah,
Or
so I
not yet?
recorded it today, and it went pretty good. I think. I mean, it'll come out tomorrow. I got some editing to do, but recorded that. And, mine right now are just kind of what's happened at the meetings. Where do we go from here? There was some real, and we'll get into it, of course, but there's some real insights that have come out of those owners' meetings down in Florida with
Mhm.
KOC. I mean, KOC especially has kind of spilled the beans on a couple things that we really wanted to hear. And
Right.
the ownership too. So we'll get into that. But I think that, right now, even though there's not a ton of news, there's still enough stuff going around with this
Yeah.
Viking team that there's plenty of things to talk about.
Thank God. I don't remember a off season where there was this much to talk about in these little like week 3 and week 4 of free agency before. So think
Yeah.
the QB2 thing, the Aaron Rodgers thing that never quits, and then this week there is, some other stuff going on. But yes, let's
Yeah.
get into the rule changes. I guess first thing first, let's start with the overtime rules because that's pretty simple. They have gotten rid of it's the same now as the playoff rules where both teams get a chance to score. Eliminated the rule where if you win the coin toss and you get the touchdown first, okay, game over. I'm assuming almost everybody is a fan of that rule. No,
I,
you're
you know,
not. You're
no,
not.
I don't think so. No, here's the thing. Back in '09, I thought it was bogus that the Saints, had a cheap ass penalty, went and kicked a field goal and it was over. So I was in favor of both teams getting a possession. But if your defense can't stop anybody and they roll down the field and you lose and you don't get a chance to get on the field, I mean, that's just, I'm sorry, you were bad. You were bad in a big moment. And now, I mean, they're kind of inching towards this college football thing where everybody gets a chance and, they score and score and score, something like that. I mean, I don't know if I love it or not. I mean, I guess if the Vikings get caught in that wash and they get a chance to get the ball back, I'll love it. But right now, I'm like, I like the way they were doing it.
Yeah, you guys drop in the chat what your opinion are on these rules because I'm curious if we're in the minority or what people think. I guess I've always felt, yeah, like it kind of sucks because if you get a good cook, I mean, first of all, and I understand what you're saying about the defense, but say there is a bad kick on special teams or a return, and I get it that the goal is to stop them, but then it just becomes so easy and when you have such a great game, I don't know. And they also only get
Yeah.
10 minutes. They only get 10 minutes. So you do have to have it together. But
Right.
yeah, I'm personally glad that that one's over. And then selfishly, for a lot of people, it is going to help with their fantasy points and stuff like that. So I know people are into that.
Yeah. Were they going to
Oh,
change? I didn't see it all today, Sally. Were they going to change the amount of time in an overtime too? I thought they were going to a 15-minute quarter. Maybe I read that wrong, that they
maybe
would be
that was
15
up for
minutes.
that could have possibly been up for debate, but I think that they kept
Yeah.
it at 10 minutes. You guys correct me if I'm wrong, but I'm pretty sure they did
Yeah.
end up keeping it at 10 minutes. Okay, let's talk about the first down measuring because JB already brought that up in the chat. They have said that now they are going to be doing the first down measuring, I believe, from overhead with a device that is similar to a drone. So that should eliminate the controversy over a bad
Mhm.
spot or a good spot.
Yeah.
And he says, who will Pat Mahomes complain to when the spots don't go his way? So
Yeah.
I'm a
I'll
fan of that
stop you
one.
when you're wrong. Yeah. I'll say this. I'm a big fan of that. And I will say this, though, truthfully, when you got a corporation that makes XYZ $1 billion a year. Why in the hell is it 2025 when this is finally happening? I mean, they've had a lot of this technology. I mean, what is Fox has put that yellow paint line across the screen for 20 years, and now all of a sudden we can't, like even at the goal line, why can't they put a sensor or something in the football so you can tell if it passes that goal line? To me, like
Oh,
with all the
yeah.
technology available, it's like I don't think anybody's arguing about that. We just want to get it right.
Exactly. Well, speaking of technology, they did add a few things that can be reviewed with replay assistance now. Of course, you can only do the replay if the flag has been thrown. You can't do the opposite if they missed a flag. But they have
Yeah.
said that now they will review intentional grounding, roughing the passer, a runner being hit out of bounds, defensive players, and face masks. Of course, this would not help our guy Sam Darnold last year since the flags were never thrown in the first place.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
I think that this is great because of course everyone hates it when that happens and it ends up screwing your favorite team.
Yeah.
It is interesting. No pass interference for review, which are obviously the biggest chunks of yards.
Yeah.
How you feeling about those being added?
Well, okay, let's go back. I mean, I think maybe this rule will allow referees to throw the flag, knowing that there's a chance it could be checked. Like a few years ago, the NFL did this thing where they would blow a play dead if there was a fumble, if they thought he was down. Now, what they've done, a lot of them, is just let him finish the play, and we'll sort it out afterwards. This to me seems like one of those deals where the ref will throw the flag, and maybe it's not face mask, maybe it is, but they'll get it right,
Hmm.
because there's a couple really big calls, and then that uh, Stafford throwing the ball into the ground thing, where it's like, well, it would have been grounding, it wouldn't have been a fumble either way. Those are the
Oh
kind of things
yeah,
that just drives me crazy. That drove me crazy because
was
even
that
Belichick says, "How are you supposed to even play defense? The rules are so slanted for the O."
was that the playoff game where that happened?
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, where he
Yeah,
throws it into the turf. I mean, he flicked it into the turf on purpose. At a minimum, that should have been intentional grounding. And I don't care that
right.
Puka was close. He wasn't looking at him. It was flicked into the ground. Mm. So I like
Yes.
these. I think it's great. I mean, I'm glad they didn't go back to that pass interference thing because I think that was just a nightmare to try and police. I think it was a nightmare.
Right. Yeah. And from what I understand, and you guys correct me if I'm wrong, because some of it was kind of hard to follow, but these have to come from the replay officials. I don't believe that it can be a coach's challenge to review them, but correct me if
Yeah.
I'm wrong on that. Seems like there's a bunch of controversy in the chat, people agreeing, people not agreeing. But I think the thing it seems like people are most fired up about is the new touchback rule, which they have increased from the 30 yard. They already increased it last year
Hmm.
to the 30-yard line, and now they have increased it to the 35-yard line. And people seem very upset about this in the chat. What are your thoughts?
Well, I want to say something. John Erico down here says the Vikings franchise is going to be inducted to the Hall of Fame as a contributor with all these rule changes. Half of these rule changes are because the Vikings have been screwed at some point during a season, and everybody goes, "Man, how could that have happened?" Yeah, I mean, to me, the NFL, they're trying to get this kickoff thing right while protecting players' health. And KOC talked about it yesterday or today on Paul Allen. I think it was yesterday on Paul Allen's show. They're trying to balance it between, we want kickoff to be a vital part of the game, but yet they don't want people's heads getting smashed in. And so,
Mhm.
these kickers today are just so much better, Sally, than they were even 10 years ago. I mean, today a 60-yard field goal is getting to be routine with these guys. And so they're going to have to find a way to peel that thing back even further down the field in order for it not to be a touchback every time.
Right. It does include a level of skill for the kickers that they are going to
Yeah.
have to hone in that area to not go into the end zone. I see why people are annoyed by it because if they do take the touchback, it is taking away a competitiveness. It's making it a lot easier for them to score. I
Yeah.
did read today, though, that just increasing that to the 30-yard line this year already cut the concussion rate 43% from the year before on kickoffs. So I feel like
Yeah.
it already made a huge difference. So I don't, what are they trying to reduce it to?
Well,
Um,
and I think part of that is that players union is hard on that, trying to reduce that thing. And again, to me, the kickoff will never be the same. We're old enough, Sally. At some point, we're gonna be able to tell our kids or whoever. I remember when they used to just kick it off, and guys would run a million miles an hour down the field and hit people. And I miss those days. I know it's not practical anymore, and I'm certainly not saying I like seeing guys with their helmets sideways, but it's part of the game I do miss because it was exciting.
Right. I mean, and Delton brings up a good point that they don't actually care about health of players. I would like to think that they do care about it more than they used to, but I can see your point there.
Yeah.
I did used to do a podcast with Brian McKinney for about 4 years, and he has shared his story of, and he doesn't harp on this by any means. He shared it because I've asked him, but he was diagnosed. He did all the testing for CTE and stuff through the league, and he was diagnosed. And the league will not compensate him for that because they say that he lives too active of a lifestyle. They can look at his Instagram, they look at whatever social media, and they say, oh well, it can't be that bad for you because you're out here living your life. And he says, well, yeah, but I have to sometimes force myself to do those things for one, and you don't see what I'm doing when I'm not, out here. So,
Yeah,
and these are, so it is kind of contradictory, but I would like to think that whoever's in charge now and making these rules genuinely does have the best interest at heart.
yeah.
I can see that they are still kind of screwing those older players on the CTE, which is frustrating because they have the money. They have the money to compensate
Oh, for
these guys.
sure. Yeah, they do.
Yeah.
And that I'll say that. I mean, those older players, the saddest thing ever is when you see these guys struggling from mental health stuff, and they're attempting suicide, or they're hurting their families, and the NFL's got the money. And I don't know. The NFL puts on a nice face about that because they get sued every other week for it. But the players' union does care to a point. At the end of the day, these guys are getting on the field and they kind of know what they're getting into, right? Not that nobody deserves it, but they sort of know it's kind of the trade-off. We're going to give you $50 million for a lot of those guys, over the course of a career or whatever, if they're good, and you are going to have some residual stuff. And if you ask those guys, they do interviews with those guys, would you rather not do this and just give up or whatever? No, we'll take our chances. So they take their
Right.
chances, right?
Right. Well, speaking of the kick returns, you guys, do we know who for the Vikings is most likely going to do kick returns this year? I guess I haven't given much thought to it.
I think Rondale Moore, right? Is that Rondale? That's his name, right? Rondale Moore.
Yeah. Okay. Maybe that's him because they didn't end up keeping Powell, did they? Powell is a free agent, I'm assuming.
Not so far, no.
Right. Okay.
Yeah,
Yeah. I guess it would probably be him, or maybe they'll actually get another wide receiver or special teams guy. But yeah, you
yeah,
guys let me know who that is going to be. But yep, 35 yard line for that now. Okay, let me see. Did
yeah.
I miss any other rules here?
They
Okay,
they
well,
did,
one, go ahead.
yeah. No, they did block. I saw that they blocked the tush push. They're not going to restrict the tush push, which I don't know.
That's another
I
one
hate
people
that.
feel very strongly about. I don't really
Yeah.
care too much either way. Why do people feel so strongly about it?
Well, I think it came to a head last year in that Commanders playoff game where, I mean, it's basically if the defensive team flies across the line, they're either offsides or they're using their helmets or whatever. Well, how else are they supposed to get any leverage on a goal line to stop that? To me, it's just an indefensible play. And if it's about, because their argument from the player's perspective was player safety. Like they have to throw themselves at these guys. And if they get low enough, there could be knee injuries or head injuries. Well, if it's player safety and not just pissy that the Eagles completed every time, great. But I still think if it's player safety, what do we do with that? I mean, they're getting low enough to the ground, and how do you defend it? I don't know.
Yeah.
If I say I don't want it, and then I'm just being pissy paws about the Eagles.
Yeah, I think that what I was reading today was that they just didn't really figure out a way exactly yet to change that rule because it is complicated. For example, they could just put two offensive linemen in there and kind of do a similar thing. And so they need a way to actually script it so that it's a rule, and they just couldn't get there. So I think
Yeah,
it's speculated that eventually they will get there with the tush push, but they did not get there today.
yeah,
All right, we've got another one that actually came out yesterday, and this isn't necessarily a rule, but now player teams are allowed to wear their alternate uniforms 4 times a year, and they have the freedom to select any helmet. And
yeah,
I know, guys love alternate uniforms here. So,
yeah.
what do you think about all that?
Yeah, I have to say, I had a comment. Oh, it was probably the second year US Bank Stadium was open. I was talking to a Rams executive at the stadium, and he was telling me about the process for changing uniforms. And
Okay.
that you might have noticed in 16, 17, 18, there were slight alterations to the Rams uniforms and to their helmets. And they wanted to do a different helmet, like a different color and style. The NFL wouldn't allow them, like fought them for a year. And then the NFL comes back and says you can change the logo on the helmet. That's all they were allowed to do.
Okay.
And so the NFL's real stringent on why they allow that. Part of that
Mhm.
is like because of jersey sales. They don't want to flip new jerseys every 3 years because it just gives the opinion of a grift, right? Like, oh, here, I got to get the new Vikings jersey this year. I mean, I think fans honestly would love it, but the NFL is real cognitive about. They're real sensitive to that. They think about it. And so, anyways, this Ram executive said this has just been a joke. I mean, we can't get anything changed. It takes literally 2 years to get a uniform change. And I think what they've done is become more responsive to changing.
Well, personally, I got a real bone to pick about that because of all three Vikings actually official stores, you can't keep a jersey in stock. You go there to actually purchase a jersey that day. It ain't there because the Fanatics thing is just terrible ever since they
Yeah.
switched to Fanatics. They'll literally just defer people to, oh, yeah, hey, go buy that online. They'll have a
Yeah.
coupon for Fanatics online and then but not in the store. In the store it's marked up. And then which okay, like it's a convenience factor, I guess. But you come into this town, you're staying at the Omni, you want to spend some money on some Vikings gear you can't find near you. And then you can't buy
Yeah.
it. And it just drives me crazy. So I don't know. I feel like other leagues can have a bunch of jerseys. Like the NBA have a bunch of alts. The NHL have a bunch of alts and nobody complains
Yeah.
about that. You don't have to buy
Well,
them.
I totally agree. These rules are arbitrary. It was what, 2 years ago? It was probably a month before the winter whiteout. You couldn't even get a regular white Addison jersey, just a regular white Addison
Right.
away jersey. Like
Right.
you're in the middle of the season. How could you? And he's a good player. How could you not have an Addison jersey? And that stuff baffles me. It baffles me that they're still doing that kind of stuff. And this Fanatics thing, I could go all night on it. I just hate it. And
Yes.
I
Yeah.
feel like it's selling your soul to the devil. It's not a well-managed
Mhm.
company. The stuff
No.
they do is a lot of really nonsensical stuff, and it makes it hard for the regular fan to get a hold of the jerseys they want. For instance, last year I bought a JJ McCarthy Winter Warrior. They didn't have the good embroidered one. What do they call it? The
No.
speed one or whatever. They didn't have that. They got this pressed on BS one that nobody really wants, but it's the only
Mhm.
JJ jersey you could get. It's like, this is the number one draft pick, and this is the jersey you offer for
Right.
$150? A garbage one, really?
And to be honest, the employees of the store probably screen pressed it that day.
Just a
It
joke.
probably didn't
I mean, I
even come.
was so I wanted the JJ so bad, so you could get it in other players. But it's like
Mhm.
your number one draft pick, you're not printing that one, you're not like embroidering that. I'd pay
Yeah.
250 for it, but instead I get this $150 one that just no bueno.
I personally don't understand how it's not a monopoly. I don't get it. They've got every league at this point. There's no competition. But I mean,
Yeah,
hey, I used to not be an advocate for DH Gate or for fake jerseys because they used to look like crap. But at this point, I mean, just buy them. Why keep supporting Fanatics? But
correct. The
there's
Chinese have upped their game
that-
there, Sally. They've gotten a lot
yeah.
better. I used to sell bootleggers back in the day. I before Favre joined the team, I maybe have told you the story. Before Favre joined the team, I showed up at training camp in Mankato when they said he was going to join with an away Favre jersey.
Mm-hmm.
That's how
Yeah, you
fast I
can
was
get
able to get it in my hands. And it wasn't great, but Paul Allen, he made note of it. He's like, oh, look at you. He goes, hey, ladies, on the radio, he says, hey, ladies and gentlemen, Brett Favre's arrived at training camp, and it looks like he's not in playing shape.
yeah.
That's
Oh
what he
God.
said about me. And
Oh
I'm
my
like, yeah, no, it's true. I said, thanks, Paul. I still remind him of that story when I run into him. Like, come on, man.
Oh my God.
So,
Yeah, a bunch of
yeah,
people in the chat have a terrible fanatic story. I know. It's
yeah,
crazy. It's crazy, you guys. But yeah, we could rip on them all day, like you said. Well, all right. You brought up Addison and you brought him up twice, so we might as well talk about him.
sure.
There has been some rumors that he might be on the trading block. I believe a Bills I don't know if he was a beat writer, but a Bills writer brought this up that it potentially could be him and then a Saints player. Who was it? It's escaping me right now. But those were both potential trade targets with the Bills. I think we kind of talked about this for a second last night, but do you
Mhm.
think that that could be potentially a realistic trade that the Vikings would make?
Well, I mean, anything's possible, I think. It would depend on what you're going to get for him. Because on a lot of teams, Addison at this point, I think, could definitely be a number one. I mean, look at when Jefferson was out. He was, in essence, definitely a number one wide receiver. So where
Mhm.
would he go and not be a number one? There's not many places. If they're going to trade a young guy like that who has had minimum, I mean, he's had a few off-field things, but let's not compare him to, he's not Rashid Rice or even Mama Rice, right? He isn't around stealing packages like a porch pirate. I'm not going to diminish the things he's done, but let's be honest, he's not a menace to society. And
Sure.
I mean, when he's on the field, he's somebody you have to game plan for. So if they're going to trade him, I don't want him to trade him, but um, if you're going to trade him, I want to see something substantial in the draft, or I want to see another starter that we can use, like a cornerback specifically. I want to see a top flight cornerback. So let's say we're trading him to the Jets. We give him Addison, and I want Sauce Gardner. That's
Bulldog
it.
said Addison would be awesome in Buffalo if he stays out of the strip clubs. Do we know about him having any sort of strip club attendance?
I,
Oh my
I can't
god.
speak from experience, Sally, but I will say Canadian strip clubs tend to be fully nude.
Well, we do have one fully nude here, King of Diamonds, and that's like
Yeah,
east, but kind of near Egan
yeah.
area. So I
But up
mean,
there, it's full liquor, though. I don't think you can. Can you have liquor in Minnesota with fully nude? I'm not sure.
it's all so confusing. I've honestly never been to a strip club in Minnesota, so I can't say. Back when the Vikings used to play at TCF, every Sunday, the guys I tailgated with, or the people I tailgated with, they would say, "Okay, if the Vikings win, we're going to the strip club," and I'd be like, "Hell yeah!" And then after the game, they would never want to go. They always talked this big game, and so I never ended up going. And now
Yeah.
I don't know, it just doesn't appeal to me as much as it once did.
Yeah. Well,
I
for
mean,
your
I
money, and
go.
I don't want to put a plug out there, but for your money in downtown Minneapolis, the White Rhino is your place. That very
Oh,
classy club. Yeah, there you go.
okay.
And
All
if you
right.
spend enough, they give you a ball cap that you can keep. Um,
Oh,
I
no.
allegedly stuff I hear. Delton down here says Mama Rice. You mean Ray Rice? No, Rasheed Rice's mother was stealing packages off of people's porches and got caught on video wearing a Mama Rice jersey. So no, his wife or his mother also steals packages. So
Wow.
yeah,
All
I know,
right.
right?
All right. I don't remember hearing that, but as far as Addison
Mm.
goes, I don't know. I mean, obviously, if the Bills made a offer they couldn't refuse, then of course I could see it. I don't think it makes a lot of sense for them, given that they don't have any depth at wide receiver. And if JJ, well, no matter who is the starter, but especially if it is JJ, I mean, he needs those weapons for sure. Just getting started in his career. And his contract isn't going to technically, it's not going to expire until 2027 because of course we're going to assume that they're going to exercise the fifth year option. So
Mhm.
I can see him trading them the next year just if they're not going to invest because of how much money they have wrapped up in other things, but this year I can't really see it.
Yeah. I
Unless
like their offensive setup. I'd like them to keep him. I mean, I think he's such a weapon out there. I just would hate to see him go. It'd have to be a blockbuster. I don't want to give him away for nothing.
right. Right. Yeah. Yeah, it would have to be a lot. It would have to be a lot. All right. Well, let me say what's up to the people who have also recently joined the chat.
Mhm.
Baseball, 1981. There's only one true Sally in this world. Sorry, I was chugging water. That compliment, it just took me so off guard. I don't think so. We've got a lot of Sallys in this world. We've got Sally the Camel, Mustang Sally, Sally Field. I know I'm forgetting a bunch of Sallys right now, but there's a lot of Queen Sallys. Fig Nuts is here. Depends if they plan on giving him a second contract. If not, trade him. Yeah, totally agree. But I would just assume that they would go ahead and do that the next
Yeah.
year. Daniel, oh hey, I already said hi to you earlier, but he wants more players with JJ initials. Uh, 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 uh. Am I missing anybody? Norsby is hi, hi, hi. Dan is here. All right. If I missed you guys, if I didn't say, oh, Davey, OG, hello. If I missed you guys and I didn't say what's up, keep talking. Oh, Fork and Skull. Hello. All right. Well, I guess we're already talking about trade rumors. You brought up Sauce Gardner, so let's get into
Yeah.
him. I know that he is still a potential rumor that people would love to see. The Vikings did clear that money, and they still haven't done anything with it. So, in theory, they could be trading for him. Do you think there's any truth to that?
I don't think so. I mean, I think they would want a lot for Sauce. I would love it. I mean, I bring him up. I mean, he's on my list. I would love to see that happen. Who knows what they're going to do with that money? I've been hearing a lot of buzz about Asante Samuel down in Florida. That he was. I heard some buzz that he was in a club, and some lady said he was wearing. Somebody was wearing a Vikings jacket, and she walked over and introduced herself, and And they were like, "Oh, are you in Minnesota?" He goes, "No, but I will be in like 5 weeks." Don't know
Oh,
if that's, yeah. He said, "I'll be there in
okay.
5 weeks," so whatever that means.
Mm,
Um,
mm.
but
Okay.
but yeah, I mean, Sauce Gardner, who wouldn't want him? I mean, he's not much of an interception machine, but he's the lockdown that we could use.
Sorry, did I misspeak and say that it was not a Vikings cap? If so, that's definitely what I meant. My bad. I don't know. Yeah, some I have seen some rumors about Hawkinson as well, potentially being on the trade block, but I haven't read anything about that in the last couple weeks. So I don't
Uh,
know. If you guys has tell me who you've seen that rumored to. Well,
yeah,
the other two I've got on my list are QBs, and I feel like we should save those for the end. Or at least a while longer. But I know my pal Dustin Baker really wants to see Denzel Ward, cornerback of the Browns. He really wants to see him be traded to the Vikings, as I'm sure many would, since they are so thin at cornerback. And I think that he would be cheaper, of course, than some others out there. Is that something you'd like to see?
Oh, I love it. I there's a number of corners out there. If we're going to do this, let's get aggressive. I mean, I think it really depends what that D line brings us this year. But last year, I mean, there were times that our cornerbacks, I mean, if it was, they didn't play a lot of man to man because they were old and sort of broken down. Yeah,
Mhm.
I think Ward would be a nice fit here. He's aggressive. He's not 50 years old. I think he would fit nicely.
Agreed. Oh, Asante Samuel. Yes, that is one that has also been mentioned a bunch this week.
Yeah,
And I have not looked into that one. I did not look into it. So you got to fill me in
yeah,
on where
yeah.
that came
No,
from.
yeah, so again, they were sitting in a club. This lady, just random lady, said she was sitting in a club in Miami, I think, or
The
somewhere in
club.
Florida. That She was in a club, and I know, real reliable. And
The
she
club.
said she saw these guys wearing a sweatshirt or a jacket, a Vikings jacket, and so she walked over thinking maybe they were players. And she said to this, who ended up being Asante Samuel, "Hey, do you play for the Vikings?" He said, "No, not yet." He said, "But I'll be up there in 5 weeks." Those were his words. "I'll be there in 5 weeks."
Oh, might be. Might be. I thought we were saying that about Sauce Gardner. Did I zone out for a second
No,
there?
no,
Okay.
well, well,
Okay. I
Asante
must have
Samuel,
zoned
right?
out.
Yeah,
I must have
yeah,
zoned out. Might be. My bad.
yeah.
I'm
That's
sorry.
okay.
Well, are these people
That's all
getting
right.
compensated for their tips? Are they getting compensated? I hope so. All right.
Yeah.
Well, Davey said Johnny Munt. No, he signed in Jacksonville. And thank God, because I will never forgive him for that onside kick. Ever. Ever. That was
Yeah.
another
What a
rule
dumb.
that was up for debate, and they declined it.
Yeah. What a dumb move, though, Johnny Munt. Let's go to that quick. What a dumb move. I mean, you're in the game now. It should have been Josh Oliver in there, but Josh Oliver was hurt. So Johnny Munt gets in there, and the best he can do is, not look at the ball at all and get smacked in the. I mean, you're in the hands team, dude. What are you doing? What are you blocking for?
Right. Yes, George. My flag is messed up. I promise. My setup needs some work. I will get the setup straight as soon as I am recovered from this foot surgery and I can actually like get on a ladder and do some stuff. I don't think if I had an accident, it could set everything back for me. But yes, I know it's not looking great. I don't really have the aesthetic eye. If someone does, come on over and set it up for me.
What are
Okay.
you talking about? I mean, I couldn't have a bigger mismatch of things. I mean, it's just like stuff I like. I don't know. I find stuff and I throw it on the wall, but
Well, sure, but
just a regular dude.
when it gets to be like a collage motif, then it looks cool,
Yeah. Yeah.
for
Well,
sure.
thank you.
But
Well, and like this big blanket behind me, that was my dad. So I hang it up there because my dad was a big Vikings fan, and he's with Jesus now. So I hang it up there and I like it. And I brought it to Lambeau with me, and then Kirk Cousins got COVID. So it's not necessarily good luck, but it was my dad's.
well, it's memorable at least.
Yeah. 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 Yeah.
And we're going to talk about Kirk Cousins in a minute as well, but let's talk about the Tom Pelissero interview first that
Yeah.
KOC did. He mentioned
Yeah.
that he told JJ, "Hey, let's treat this as a redshirt year. Not He doesn't consider him a rookie going into this because of that experience that he had last year studying the game, watching Sam Darnold and etc. He still did not really fully clear up the Aaron Rodgers situation though.
Yeah.
At least in my opinion. I know some people think that he did, but in my opinion, he didn't. He said, I've got a ton of respect for Aaron and has known him a long time. And of course, it's something that, they had to explore, but they still didn't like completely shut it down.
Yeah.
Do you think
Yeah.
it's shut down?
No, I don't. And when I watched that interview 3 times, and the first time I watched it, I go, "Oh, JJ's the guy." Yeah, no Rodgers. I mean, he mentions him, and then I watched it a couple more times, and I'm like, listen. O'Connell understands that this is a couple things. I think he knows it's a critical year for him in his coaching career. It's great that he's won so many games. He's got to win playoff games, and people are going to knock him on that until he does. He's
Mm-hmm.
had 2 playoff games, and they didn't go very good. And secondly, I mean, in my mind, O'Connell's coaching career really starts once he gets his franchise quarterback in there to play. The clock starts. And what happens if JJ gets to training camp and he's just, whether injury or he's just not looking very good? And you got this loaded lineup, which O'Connell said, yeah, he said, we play to win every year. We bring in the guys we think we're going to win. Well, if that's the case and JJ isn't shaping up the way he thought, is he willing to take a mulligan on the year and go, well, it's JJ's development year? Because in the NFL, it's not for long if you can't win big games, right? I mean, I don't know.
Right.
I know that
I
was long-winded, but yeah, so he didn't close the door.
I gotta tell you, I don't understand why. Are we concerned about JJ having the same injury and the injury potentially not being healed? Because why is there all this? Oh, if JJ gets hurt, if JJ gets hurt, if JJ gets hurt. We don't say that about any other quarterback ever. We're
Yeah.
not, they're not around the league. People aren't like, oh, if this guy gets hurt, if this guy gets hurt, like, why is there so much concern about him being hurt? And it's not just the meniscus in general that people are talking about. I just am confused about it.
Yeah. Well, let's go down this. I'm glad you brought that up. Once there was a guy named Dante Culpepper, pretty good until his knee wasn't.
Mm-hmm.
Teddy Bridgewater, decapitated leg. I mean,
Right.
when we get, I think it's just snake bit stuff, right? It's that snake bite stuff where, well, gosh, what if his knee's tricky? And it's like, dude, someone told me the other day, listen, my grandma had meniscus surgery and she was skiing 2 weeks later. So it's like,
Yes.
yeah, yeah, great. I mean, that's your granny. I mean, she tears out her leg again. She uses a walker the rest of her life. This is a franchise quarterback on a perennial winning football team. So I mean, it's snake bite. I think that's what it is. I mean, I don't anticipate with a meniscus injury he wouldn't be good or that somehow he's forgot how to play quarterback.
Right. That's what I'm confused by. I like the meniscus is the easiest knee injury to recover from. If he blew out his ACL, I'd be like, "Oh, okay. Well, that is something that can be prone to reoccur once you damage those ligaments." But
Yeah,
meniscus, it was a torn meniscus. He opted to go for the full repair, which I think is the move to make because they
yeah,
can be lingering, they can continue to cause you pain, and you just
sure.
trim them and trim them and trim them. Listen, I'm no orthopedic surgeon, but I have had three knee surgeries, so I'm a little bit
Yeah,
familiar. And I'm also no professional athlete, obviously, so I'm not trying to compare myself to JJ McCarthy, but I am a patient of Twin Cities Orthopedics. Okay, so um, I don't understand it. We're talking about a meniscus,
yeah,
so I don't know. I don't know where
yeah,
the constant obsession, like just the narrative of injury, injury, injury. But
yeah,
somebody does say in the chat that he's injury prone. So if he has a lot of injuries in college that I'm not familiar with, please let me know, guys. And if he does,
yeah.
then that is very concerning.
Yeah.
So
Well,
I get it.
you were gonna segue into a QB2 discussion. I think
Yeah.
that's if you're looking for that, that to me it's the same thing as around here. If something happens to JJ during the season, right now fans are going, boy, Brett Rippin, who's that guy? Ripien, what's his name? I mean, when you can't even pronounce the guy's name unless you're a hardcore football guy or gal,
Mhm.
yeah, I mean, you're freaking out because you got all this talent. It's like, do we want to take Jettis and just say, sorry, pal, you're not going to win again another year?
Right. Yes,
Yeah,
I get that. Um, okay, my bandage has already been removed for a few weeks, so that's no problem. And as far as Norse being fed grapes in a hammock, I don't know how I feel about all that, but I'm doing really well in my recovery. I just can't be I don't think it's a good idea for me to be climbing things. Will Reichard is also injury prone. I Again, do we have evidence of that after just this one season? Like, does he have college injury history as well?
I don't
I'm
believe
not.
so.
Not that I've heard of. Vikings guy. Oh, you left out Sam Bradford. Well, I mean, that was definitely already a reoccurring thing before he came here, and that was a trade out of absolute desperation. They didn't have a lot more options, and it worked. I guess I shouldn't say it worked because when he came, was his first year, the year they went 6-0 and then
Yeah,
crumbled.
yeah, yeah.
And then crumbled. And then he did come back the next year, right, for the opener
Yeah,
and
he
played lights
did. And
out.
yeah, against the Saints.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I remember
Lights
going to that
out.
game. Yeah, and I remember going to my sister, it was actually this is so I mean, everything sounds sorry for me, but it was my sister the day of my sister's funeral, and the Vikings actually had fireworks that night that they were going to fire off if they beat the Saints. And Bradford played maybe the best game a Viking quarterback ever played in a season opener. Just tore him
Yes.
up.
Oh my
And
God, it was
then,
so
they did the fireworks, and I don't know if Bradford got hit by a firework or what, but that was the end then. Oh, he's got this well, because 'cause he's got this little knee injury, it's no big deal week to week to week to week, and then, all of a sudden, he's just gone.
Yep. They put him back in for like what was it, one half? Was it against the Bears? I don't know if that was
Yeah,
Halloween. There was a couple Bears games there a few years in a row that were primetime that were very traumatizing.
yeah,
It was either the 6-0. I think it was 2017. They put him back in for one half because Mike Zimmer hated Case Keenum, didn't want him,
yeah,
and
for
they
sure.
put him in for the half, and he was just not right. And then he had to put Case in after that. But yep, then we never saw him again. Davey,
Yeah, real
who
weird.
are you talking about? Are you talking about Will Reichard? I don't know why I said it like that, Reichard. But all right. Well, let's
Mm,
get into QB2s, I suppose. I was going to bring up Kwesi, but I think the Wolf, Mark Wolf came out and said, "Hey, we're gonna get this done. We just don't
mm.
know when."
That's
And
weird.
I'm personally not
That's
worried
weird.
about it.
But
Well,
isn't
I
that
think they're
weird?
working on it. They're working
Well,
on it,
yeah,
right?
but I mean, what the hell, in your opinion, Sally, what the hell does it take? Like, okay, you know what he's done. I mean, he's got very few draft picks this year. You going to wait till middle of the year and see if any of his draft picks fizzle out? I mean, I don't know. It's weird. I just think it's weird. Like, why? As someone, nobody will ask him this, but why is it taking so long, Kwesi? I mean, why would that take so long?
If I had to hypothesize, I would say that it was something that they planned to get done before, around the time of
Hmm.
when they got KOCs done. KOCs
Hmm.
was urgent because there was all those trade rumors and things circulating, and they wanted to quiet those. And I think, plus he was up for the coach of the year and stuff. And then for whatever reason, Kwesi's just didn't get done in time, just like Jefferson's didn't get done when they expected that to get done. And so now there's so much going on. There was the free agency, the draft, and maybe they consider it to be a bit of a distraction. Like they don't want to potentially go into a contract negotiation when there's other things to be concerned about right now. If that would be my guess.
Yeah.
And maybe it will be after the draft. Because to me, waiting until after the draft just for the draft's sake doesn't make a lot of sense because you don't know until a couple years later how those picks pan out.
Yeah.
So to judge him for that, I don't know. That wouldn't make a ton of sense to me. But I think it is good news that he came out and said that it is
Do
going to
you
get
do
done.
you do you think that maybe this thing is being held up by Kwesi? Like he's saying, listen, look at my free agent classes. The draft, nobody gets the draft, right? I mean, very few guys get the draft, right? Brad Holmes does every year, but he's an outlier. And he's asking for what he thinks he's worth in the market, and the Vikings are saying, well, the draft, man. Lewis Seen, tell me about him. Ed Ingram, what's Ed Ingram doing these days, right?
It could be. It could be maybe they already offered him a contract and he said, "Hey, like, I'm not really into this. We need to go back to the drawing board." I don't know. I guess that could potentially be it, but I couldn't also see the Wilfs wanting to split him and KOC up at this time, at this point in time. Maybe later down the road I could see it if there were an issue, but I don't know. I think it's more likely it just didn't get done in time and It'll get done,
Yeah.
I
Could
think. I
KOC do both jobs, Sally? Couldn't he just do both jobs? Bill Belichick did for
maybe
years, right?
I think you'd have to really heavily depend on your scouts for those undrafted free
Yeah.
agents and for the all of that stuff. And that I don't know. Can you trust your scouts that well? You'd have to have a really good system
Yeah.
around you. I don't know. Maybe that's a career goal for him. Not this early in his career. That'd be a lot. That'd be a
Yeah.
lot. All
Sorry to
right.
throw that out there. I was just like, yeah, maybe, who
No,
knows? Yeah.
no. Maybe down the
He's
road.
a
Maybe
smart
down the
guy.
road. Enter his sleeveless hoodie era. Maybe.
Yes, that's it. Just start cutting the sleeves. If he starts cutting the sleeves off things, we just got to go, oh shit. Now it's
Yeah.
happening.
Yeah,
Oh,
exactly. All right,
funny.
let's get into QB2. Let's get into QB2. I feel like we've talked a lot about the same old names, Flacco. Um, oh my gosh, Flacco, Tannehill, all those boring ones. The one
Yeah.
that's kind of picking up some steam, though, is Will Levis. And I haven't gotten your opinion on him at all. Um, do you think that that's a guy that potentially KOC could see as a project?
Yeah, I do. If you watch Levis at all in Kentucky, there were a lot of people saying Levis will be first round. Levis. If you watch Levis in Kentucky, I mean, the guy, if he stopped at a stoplight and was trying to decide between red, green, or yellow, you weren't sure which way he was going to go. I mean, he's just not a very good decision maker with the ball. And we
Mhm.
watched him in our game against the Titans this year. It seems like when he gets hit or gets in a situation, he's in panic mode. And I think KOC could work with that, but to me, if Levis, that decision making thing, some of that's coaching, some of that's just you are who you are, and can you get rid of that enough? And again, but it's also your backup. I mean, if Will Levis is playing 14 games for you, you're probably picking third in the draft.
Yeah. Yeah. I think some of those skills that you mentioned, maybe people could say that Sam Darnold had some of those issues as well,
Yeah,
as far as the decision making and the panicking. However, I think Sam Darnold had a lot more of an upside as far as the arm strength goes and
yeah,
and those physical attributes. So I could maybe see him coming to Kevin O'Connell quarterback rehab clinic, but I wouldn't
yeah,
see that as a priority in them acquiring by any means,
yeah,
especially because I mean, there's no mentorship but possibility with him and JJ
yeah.
either. So I don't know what would really be the
Well,
point, unless it ended up being like a Daniel Jones situation where it's like, okay, there's no harm in bringing this guy in. We're
yeah.
not losing anything. But
I mean,
yeah,
ideally, I would like to see a mentorship for JJ McCarthy. Levis won't provide that. And I think the difference, like you were mentioning, the difference between Levis and Darnold. Well, Darnold was the third overall pick in the draft or something. He was a
right.
first round guy, and he
Yeah.
actually went to a football school called USC. He didn't go to Kentucky, and so there's that, right? I
Yeah.
mean, so
Yeah.
they were both drafted. There is that similarity, but I'd like to have somebody behind JJ that can actually teach him some things.
Right. Yeah.
I just don't know that Levis would, and that's why, like, let's just do this Flacco thing right now. Let's just do that. Get a guy behind him that you know. If he has to play a couple games, it's not going to be a dumpster fire. He's going to teach really good work ethic, and he's a winner. He's won a Super Bowl. Let's get that guy behind JJ. Not to overtake JJ, because JJ's not going to sit and go, oh gosh, 47-year-old Joe Flacco's behind me. Joe Flacco's going to be there patting him on the shoulder saying, hey, nice throw, kid, or maybe you should have threw it here. Let's work on this, right?
Yeah. Yeah, I agree with that logic. I think if anybody, I would prefer to see a veteran who can offer a like that, something that maybe he can communicate in a different
Mhm.
way or in a different language or outside of like the film room or something like that. Just step
Yeah,
in and be able to offer some advice, as you said. Now he did step
yeah,
in and win some games for the Colts last year. He did end up kind of crashing and burning there towards the end. I don't know if their
mm,
coach handled that the best way either with Anthony Richardson. Uh, I feel like they probably hurt his confidence a little bit when they did a little back and forth thing there too. But there was also major
yeah,
offensive line injuries at that point for the Colts too.
yeah. I mean, it never, and I have friends who are Colts fans. It never made any sense for Steichen to put in Flacco. It's like I understand that there should have been a punishment when Richardson walked off the field because he was tired. But so what? Suspend him for a game. to pull him out of there, if you think he's the guy, to pull him out of there then was just like, what are you doing, man? Like, are you really going to keep that old man Flacco in there and you're going to take this draft pick that you spent capital on and let him sit?
Right.
Because what? Because yeah, I mean, he should never have gone out. That was such a bad look for him to take a playoff. Like, I need to take a playoff. I'm tired. It's like, dude, you're in the NFL. You're a quarterback. You're not the third string guard. I mean, it's just a bad look, right? I mean,
Pull a chili. Pull a chili. To take his game check for the week.
hey, well, do something. I mean, there's ways of punishing guys behind the scenes, right? I mean, you don't. It was that he's a clown. He's just a clown in Indianapolis. They did a lot of changes this year. Shane Steichen should have been out the door. It's just a bad hire. I mean, their owner is a drunken idiot, and his dad was a bigger idiot, and the culture down there's bad, and Peyton Manning ain't rolling through that door. If they think Daniel Jones is that guy, they're into Ursay's liquor collection because it's just a mess.
Well, we'll see if he learned anything in KOC rehab. George says, we will swing a trade for Dalton six for a 6. Are you referring to Andy Dalton? Because I've always had a soft spot for Andy Dalton. I really have. But I don't know if it's worth giving up a 6 because skill-wise, I don't know if there's that much of a difference in some of the guys that are available.
Yeah. Where is Andy Dalton these days? Where's he at?
I believe he's still in Carolina, backing up. Is it Bryce Young down there?
Yeah, Bryce Young. Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
Was that 2 years ago I was in Carolina? Must have been. Yeah. I was hoping to see Andy, but no, didn't get to see Andy. But I'd be down for Andy. Although for me and my personal, affection for redheads, I would like a season off. I would like a season off for a redhead behind center, but I'll deal with it if I have to. Andy Dalton is like a true ginger. Yeah, I don't know. It'll be a lot for me to take it.
Yeah, he's the red rifle, right? The original red rifle. Yeah.
Yeah, he's the red rifle. How crazy though when you look back at that draft. I think I brought this up recently on something else. How crazy you look back at that that draft with Christian Ponder, that Andy Dalton is the only one that had any success out of all the quarterbacks.
And who would have thought that? I mean, I thought like he would probably, well, I don't know if least likely, but he's still hanging around. Like, what the heck? I mean, someone mentioned the other day, speaking of that, Laquan Treadwell is in his 10th season. What?
Yeah.
How is that clown still playing? He was bad 10 years ago.
It is crazy. And then isn't Mike Hughes still playing as well?
Yeah.
At least, yeah, Mike Hughes is still playing. Laquan Treadwell, Cordero Patterson, who really with him, it just turns out that Zimmer never figured out how to use them. Or, excuse me, whoever the offensive coordinators were, all of them over those years never figured it out because that Zim was hands-off offense. None of that was ever his fault.
Sure.
So
yeah. No, and Cordero allegedly Cordero couldn't run routes. But as it turns out, he was super fast and physical and could line up at the running back position. I mean, it was just such a deal. You're right. Well, in Laquan's defense, I mean, if you can make it in the NFL for 10 years, like only a third of players ever end up playing like more than 6. So it's crazy that he's just hung around for so long because he's just not good at all.
Yeah, Dalton, I'm pretty sure Mike won a Super Bowl with the Chiefs, I believe.
He did.
And he actually played in it. It wasn't like a Lewis scene where he didn't play.
Yeah. Well, I love it when Paul Allen, he's talking at the TCO Performance, he calls the one rehab area the Mike Hughes Memorial Field.
Oh my God.
Because Mike Hughes he calls it the Mike Hughes Memorial Field because he's always been rehabbing. So that's what he named the rehab area.
Oh my God. All right. Good night, JB. Yeah, that is hilarious. All right. Well, do we have anything else to touch on? I was going to maybe bring up Kirk Cousins, who somebody just brought up in the chat. Treadwell is the cousins of wide receivers, but I don't know if we have enough time. The only reason I was going to bring it up is because I see him back in the news today. I thought we were done with him, that we were done with that even being a debate that he was going to be anywhere since the Falcons ended up paying him that bonus. But apparently not. Apparently not. Do you think there's any chance that he is not with the Falcons?
Yeah, I do. I think when you get to the draft, I one thing that I think he's looking out for is not ending up with a team because he's got that no trade. I think he's interested in ending up with a team that's not going to pull the switcheroo after the draft. I'm bringing you in. Oh, just kidding. We drafted a guy. So I think what he'll do, because he has the leverage, is he'll wait till after the draft or around the draft, and he'll find a team and he'll make sure that he's going to be a starter. He didn't like what the Falcons did to him, and from people I've talked to down there, that really affected him because he felt like that was a dirty move. And so he doesn't, I think he'll, so yes, the answer is yes. And I think he'll wait till either around or after the draft to figure it out.
Yeah, I think what did they say? Schefter said today, the Browns, who else? Potentially the Steelers, obviously, if they don't go with Aaron, who was working out with DK Metcalf this weekend, who people are putting a ton of stock in, but I don't know. I don't know what to put stock in with Aaron or not. With him, anything can happen. And then, of course, the Vikings still out there
Sally,
as a
Sa-
rumor.
Sally, you should just prepare yourself now. Here in about 4 or 5 years, yes, they are going to put him in the Ring of Honor. You know it. You know they are because they have to, right? He's
The
one of
Ring
the
of Honor for what? For
for the
what?
Vikings. He's one of the most prolific passers in the history of the Minnesota Vikings. I hate it,
Please,
Sally, but they're going to do it. They're going
please.
to do it.
No. We are ending the show on this note. This is fun. This is over. This is over.
This is the last time you'll see me with Sally, folks. It was a nice run until it wasn't.
This is over. The Ring of Honor. Okay, first of all, people cannot have me mentally preparing for potentially Aaron Rodgers being the quarterback of my favorite team, and then tell me not even a month later I got to start preparing for Kirk Cousins to be in the Ring of Honor, his name to be on the permanently. No, I can't. I can't. This is where I draw the line. This is where
I'm so
I
glad you
draw
brought him up.
the line.
I'm so glad you brought him up. I've been holding that little ditty. I was thinking about that yesterday. Like they might put that stinky sucker in there, and they should call it the Ring of Average because that's what it would become.
I mean, what an insult to people like Jared Allen and Randy Moss and all of them. I mean, I know they're on another caliber because they're also Hall of Famers, but what the hell?
Correct.
No. No. And so people have to
I love this. This is exactly, folks, this is what you pay admission for right here is this reaction from Sally. I knew it when I said it, and once it hit, it was like, boop, there it is.
Yeah. Fig Nuts says
Precious.
April Fools. I hope this is April Fools. God.
Sure, why not? Sure, why not?
And sad Minnesota Phoenix sports fan, Ring of Honor for bad contracts. Hell yeah. And we'll start a new category. All right, Vikings guy. Tell everybody where to find your stuff. Where do we find your podcast?
Yeah.
And you got a store now, right? For the hats.
I do. Do. Yeah. So here's the thing. So what you can do is we have this hat and we have the original, which is right here. You can get it at www.barbecuebbqbyjojo.com/Vikings, or you can go to @VikingsGuy Day ONE1 so VikingsGuy Day 1 at TikTok. You can go there, send me a message, or you can send me an email to VikingsGuyDay1 @gmail. You can find me on Twitter at the same place. Send me a message. We'll shoot you out a hat the very next day. They are snapbacks, so there's not a fitted situation. They're comfortable hats. Sally, you have one. I mean, they're very comfortable hats. Dave loves it. I mean, they're all the rage. I talked to Harrison Phillips last week. Him and JJ should have theirs. So, everybody wants one. So, yeah. But that's where you can find me. Come into TikTok. You never know, Sally. You were in there last night. I've had people from NFL Network in there. I've had a couple players, former and current players that pop into my lives. You get a chance to talk to guys like Adam Rank and ask them questions, NFL Network questions. So,
yeah,
it's a good time.
Dalton Reisner in there last night on our TikTok live. Yeah. So pretty fun. Yeah. Okay, you guys, people are asking about the dogs. They are actually sleeping very peacefully tonight. I have my guest bedroom bed set up tonight. I don't usually have it set up, and they are sleeping. So that's where they're at. But I promise that they're good. Okay, you guys, it is so good to hang out with you. Thank you guys for showing up. I am going to have ESPN's Jordan Reed on here hopefully next week, but we will confirm that and I will let you guys know. So you make sure you prepare all your draft questions for Jordan. Jordan has been a friend of mine for a long time now. God, probably like 10 years because he used to be all over Vikings Twitter back in the day. So, yeah. All right, you guys. So nice to hang out with you. I will see you next week. And Skol Vikings.
Skol.
Like, subscribe, and ring the bell. And rate us on your favorite aggregator. And a big shout out goes to Sal and her guests on this Vikings First and Skol production, partnered with the Fans First Sports Network. Thanks, everyone, and Skol.